Just when you thought you could turn your back and walk away, the dark cloud of human indignity follows you. You have no choice but to turn and look it in the eye. It's the sex offender hit list.
Oklahoma, U.S. District Judge John D. Russell sentenced Byron Allen Lee of Sapulpa for production, receipt, distribution, and possession of child sexual abuse material in Indian country. Lee was sentenced to 360 months, it's about 30 years in prison, followed by 10 years of supervised release. And upon his release, Lee will also have to register as a sex offender, and he was ordered to pay $6,300 in restitution. Back in October of 23, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children received several cyber tips about an individual online uploading videos and images that showed the sexual abuse and exploitation of our children. The investigation revealed Lee owned or uploaded more than 7 videos and 68 images to social media as well as file sharing platforms, where they're more accessible for other chomos to grab and send out themselves. Lee would also chat about his fantasies of raping and abusing young children. In October of 21, Lee was convicted in state court of using technology to engage in sexual communication of a minor. After receiving, check this out, a 10-year suspended sentence in state court and registering as a sex offender, Lee continued to exploit minors and created sexually explicit images. Lee is a citizen of the Cherokee Nation and will remain in custody pending transfer to the U.S. Bureau of Prisons, where he belongs, and hopefully rots. Alright, down the Mississippi, we've got a Pearl River chomo. He was sentenced to 9 years in federal prison for possession of child sexual abuse material. Court documents state the 52-year-old William Henry had about 400 pornographic images of children under the age of 12 in his possession. Henry was indicted by a federal grand jury back in September of 2020 and finally pleaded guilty in October of 23. In addition to prison time, Henry was ordered to pay $6,000 in restitution to victims as well as a $9,000 assessment. The Choctaw Police Department and the Federal Bureau of Investigation investigated this case, and this case was brought as part of Project Safe Childhood, which is a nationwide initiative to combat the growing epidemic of child sexual exploitation and abuse. See ya, chomo.
Now get in there!
Illinois. A Petersburg man charged with dissemination and possession of child sexual abuse material worked as a security officer at a school for, check this out, the visually impaired children. That's right, blind kids. This is 51-year-old Shane E. Guernsey. He was arrested by the Illinois State Police after an investigation over the summer. The state police said that agents began the investigation in June and obtained a search warrant for Guernsey's home last week. In the petition filed to deny pretrial release, they didn't want him out of there, the Menard County State's Attorney Gabe Grosball noted that Guernsey is a danger to the community, his neighborhood, and his place of employment especially. Grosball further states that Guernsey works as a security officer in a school for the blind, and there's no combination of conditions that can protect the community from this chomo. I so agree with him. Indiana. A former Indiana University professor was arrested after authorities reportedly found files of child sexual abuse material in his online Dropbox folder. 70-year-old Richard R. Wilk was arrested on Tuesday for possession of child sexual abuse material, a level 5 felony. According to court documents, on December 13th of last year, detectives with the Bloomington Police Department were alerted by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children that they identified child sexual abuse material of a person less than 12 years old on that drop box. Officers informed the Dropbox company of this and provided the specific account information identifying Professor Wilk as a suspect. Detectives and officers with the Bloomington Police Department were able to execute a search warrant on Wilk's home on Tuesday, and according to detectives, Wilk told police that they should be pursuing the producers of child sexual abuse material and that he just watched child pornography because he was curious. Wilk is a distinguished professor at the Indiana University in the anthropology department. The university said that he retired as a professor back in 2017. Officers transported Wilk to the Monroe County Jail. See ya, Professor Chomo.
Yeah, my mother told me there'd be days like this.
A Goshen man pled guilty to 2 felonies after having sexual intercourse with a child in Warsaw. This is Eduardo Lozano Maldonado, a 33-year-old, and he pled guilty to sexual misconduct with a minor, a level 4 felony, and child solicitation, a level 5 felony. On September 23rd of 2021, a Kosciuszko County Sheriff's Office deputy responded to a report of a sexual misconduct with a minor. A woman said she found messages between Maldonado and a child and led the woman to believe the child had a sexual encounter with Maldonado. The child was then interviewed and said that Maldonado contacted them through Snapchat and said Maldonado knew how old they were and that they had communicated online from about February of 21 until they met in person in July of 21. During the interview, the child said they sent a photo of themselves in their underwear to Maldonado. And on July 31st of 21, Maldonado drove to the child's home and took them to a parking lot in Warsaw, where inappropriate conduct occurred. The child said Maldonado had sexual intercourse with them. On October 1st of 21, the woman who discovered the communications between Maldonado and the child said she reactivated the child's Snapchat account and messaged Maldonado while posing as the child. Maldonado agreed to meet with the child again after those conversations and went to the child's home on October 3rd, where he was met by law enforcement. Maldonado told officers he met with the child on Snapchat and believed that they were 18 years old, and he said he just kissed the child on the cheek and no other contact had occurred. Electronic messages, however, between Maldonado and the child were provided to law enforcement, and in the conversations, Maldonado admitted to having sexual intercourse with the child and gave specific details about that sexual encounter. In the communications, Maldonado also expressed his wishes to have further sexual encounters with the kid. He also sent an inappropriate photograph of himself and asked the child to send him nude photos multiple times. Maldonado will be sentenced on October 22nd. See ya, Chomo. New York, a convicted level 2 sex offender has been arrested again on child sexual exploitation charges, according to the state police. This is 57-year-old Giovanni Fasella of Catskill, and he was arrested last Tuesday and charged with promoting a sexual performance by a child and possessing a sexual performance by a child. The charges against Fasella stem from a May 26th of 22 search of his former residence in the Coimans, where police uncovered the illicit images. The investigation was prompted by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Fasella was convicted on similar charges in early 22 related to a 2020 incident. That incident resulted in him getting a 10-year probation sentence. You know, that just goes to show you can't let these guys out on a deferred sentence or probation. They need long-term prison time, if not life, or even in some states, the death penalty. See, Fasella was arrested back in December of 2020 on promoting and possessing a sexual performance by a child involving an 8-year-old girl. And of course, they let him off on probation thinking this fishy-eyed chomo would do some good. Well, he didn't. The State Police Troop G Computer Crimes Unit, the Internet Crimes Against Children's Task Force, and the U.S. Department of Homeland Security arrested the 57-year-old on charges, again, of promoting and possessing images related to child sexual exploitation. Vasella was then arraigned in Coymanstown Court and held in the Albany County Correctional Facility with no bail. Hopefully this time they don't let him out.
I'd like to know what dirty stone pigeon squealed on me.
Virginia, a Sterling man has been charged with sexually assaulting a child under the age of 10 between January of last year and this February in the Manassas area. On September 20th, detectives concluded an investigation into the assaults and arrested James Eugene Edwards, a 58-year-old of Sterling, said Prince William County Police Master Officer Renee Carr. Edwards was charged with aggravated sexual battery and held at the Prince William Manassas Regional Jail on a measly $25,000 secured bond. Not good enough. Do better. Pennsylvania. A Harrisburg man who is wanted for numerous child sex offenses was arrested today. According to the Harrisburg Bureau of Police, officers arrested 33-year-old Alonzo Lindsay, who was wanted for allegedly raping a minor and various other sexual offenses. A warrant was released for Lindsay's arrest back a few days ago on the 23rd. Lindsay was arrested for the following charges: 1 count of rape, forcible compulsion, 1 count of unlawful contact with a minor, 1 count of corruption of minors, and 1 count of rape, threat of forcible compulsion. Lindsay will be arraigned today, September 30th, well, it was actually yesterday, 10:30 in the morning, and we'll have a preliminary hearing on October 10th at 9:30 in the morning. I'm going to have to keep my eyes on this chomo. I'm already a day behind.
I'm gonna give you solitary confinement for 99 years.
Over to Pennsylvania. A man from Lehman Township, accused of sexually assaulting at least 3 children, pled guilty in Luzerne County Monday. John James Martin, 47-year-old, was arrested by Lehman Township Police in 2021 after investigating several complaints that he had sexually assaulted 2 girls and a boy. Police initiated an investigation in July of 21 when one of the girls sent an email to the Pennsylvania State Police about Martin sexually assaulting her and another girl. And during the investigation, police learned that Martin had also sexually assaulted a young boy. Martin was scheduled for trial this week, but entered a plea agreement with prosecutors and pled guilty to 3 separate counts of rape of a child and indecent assault before Judge David W. Lupus. Martin, of course, remains jailed with no bail at the county correctional facility and is scheduled to be sentenced December 27th. A 69-year-old Olathe man wanted for child-related sex crimes in Atchison is now in custody. That word comes in a release from Atchison Police Chief Mike Wilson, who says that Carlos Rondon on Thursday evening was arrested by the Olathe Police Department on an Atchison County District Court warrant charging him with 3 counts of aggravated indecent liberties with a child. According to the release, the charges are a result of Atchison Police Department investigation that began in July 30th of this year and involved 3 victims that were under the age of 14 at the time the alleged crimes were committed, over an 8-year period in Atchison, which Wilson says was between 2012 and 2020. Following his arrest last week, Rondon was booked into the Johnson County, Kansas jail. His bond is set at $1 million. See ya, chomo.
Let me out of here! Let me out of here!
Say, excuse me, Judge. How many times do I need to show these videos until people become aware?
Multiple times.
When a child experiences trauma, they can be stripped of their ability to imagine. But imagination is colors. All the colors. Imagination is freedom and whatever you want it to be. But a child without imagination is not a child at all. Will you help defend our right to imagine?